Welcome to the STARS program, seniors taking active roles in society. And now, here's your host, Anita Finley.
Well, I'd love to introduce everyone to Katrina Hernandez, who is the Family Services Manager at Science Care. And Science Care is a whole body donation program. And there's no cost, no age limits. And we're going to talk, and it's really nice to talk to Katrina. She happens to be in Arizona. So welcome to our show, Katrina.
Thank you, Anita.
It's a pleasure to have you doing this. And I want everyone to know about Science Care because my husband and I are both part of this as far as being and we're not a recipient. We're actually, we're a donor, right?
Yeah, it would be a registered donor.
A registered donor.
Future donor.
A what?
Actually, a future donor.
Oh, we are called a future. Yeah, thank you. You're not taking me out yet.
We don't want you to donate yet.
Future donor. That's good. So let's tell everybody what that really means. Let's start off with that, and then we'll go into some of our other things.
Absolutely. So Science Care is a whole body donor program that links those that wish to donate their body to science with medical research, education, and training programs. And as Anita mentioned, there is no cost. So we cover the transportation, the filing of the death certificate, cremation, and the return of cremated remains within 3 to 5 weeks. And the great news is most all will qualify. So the only exclusions are contagious disease, extreme obesity, or severely underweight, or simply not having a legal consenter. The great thing is in Florida is unique in their consenting class. So in Florida, they will allow a affidavit, so a personal affidavit. So I know there's those out there, probably, listeners that are going, I don't have family or I don't have living relatives, so I'm not able to be a part of this program. And actually in Florida, you can through this personal affidavit. So this could be even a neighbor or a friend, anyone that is willing to step up and consent to the process. And the personal affidavit just has to be signed by any facility, just confirming that this individual, you would like for them to consent to the process.
And why is Florida unique?
Florida is unique. So we have 5 facilities across the United States, and we actually accept donations on a national level, so all states with the exception of Minnesota and New Jersey. Florida, in their consent class, allows this personal affidavit, where in other states they may stop after, other living relatives. So again, for families that don't have any living relatives or a next of kin and rely heavily on neighbors and friends, Florida, again, allows for that personal affidavit. So it's a little more flexibility than there is in other states. Why that is, I'm not quite sure. I would believe, maybe Florida, there's a lot of people that, come over from other countries and other things, and it just allows for more flexibility due to the different demographics that can be drawn to Florida.
I see. Well, and of course, we have a very high population, as you do in Arizona and New York, of older adults. And I think that's very important, too, that a lot of people are going to need these services. And listen, the kicker is we all know we're going to die. We just don't know when.
Right.
And so
right. A lot of times it's uncomfortable having that conversation. It's not something you're sitting over the dinner table and everybody wants to hear about. But I can't stress the importance enough of sharing your wishes with your loved ones, with your, not only your family, but with your friends. We don't realize that they are going to be the ones to make the final arrangements. So if we're not sharing what our wishes are, then they're going to determine what that is. So if you have a strong desire to be a donor, again, just share it with your next of kin, friends, and family. It's important.
Yeah, it really is. So why don't you tell people exactly what what we're looking at. So if someone wants to do this, how do they? I mean, I know because we are one, but how easy is it?
The process is simple. So I'll start with if you want to become a donor. How do you do that? So you can register with us. You can register with us by telephone or by simply going to our website and register online. So you can register that way, but you don't have to register to be a donor. We also have our HOPE program. That is great. It is specifically designed for hospice patients or those with a terminal illness. The HOPE program allows us to pre-screen and provide acceptance prior to passing. You can also self-authorize to both the cremation and the donation. So again, if you don't have family or living relatives, this is a great option for those because you can self-consent to the process. So you can, again, join us when you are at need. If you have a loved one that would need our service, whether or not they are registered or not registered, you can always give us a call. Our website address is www.sciencecare.com, or you can call 800-417-3747. Another great way to stay connected with us is via our newsletter. A lot of people, hundreds and hundreds, sign up for our newsletter. And these may be people that are kind of on the fence about joining our program, or they just want to hear about it. Now, they may have other plans right now, but they're curious. They want to know about it. Join our newsletter. Our newsletter, we talk about donor stories, the advancements that are made through donation, to tips on better health, and many, many more. So, again, it's a great way to get involved in the community, whether you choose to register or join our program. There's a lot of good information there. So, again, you can call us to join the newsletter or registry or via our website.
I see. Okay, and that's very important. So, again, 1-800-417-3747. 24 hours a day, you can call for more information, 1-800-417-3747. And their website, again, is sciencecare.com, sciencecare.com. And also, people should know, since we work very closely with veterans, that the program works well with the VA death benefits and funeral options. Do you want to share that a little bit more?
Absolutely. So with Science Care, 1 out of every 3 or 1 out of every 4, depending on the year, and that number continues to grow, are veterans that sign up for our program. We think a lot of that is because they, spend their whole life serving. So what better way to continue to give back after death than donation? Veterans, as far as the program, you can, again, register or any of the others. And we do have a Veterans Memorial Wall on our website where we share their years of service and honor them in a very special and unique way.
That's really special. That really is special. I know I know that Melinda has talked about that before, and that's really nice to do for the families. So for people to do this, you have to be very dedicated to understanding what a doctor needs as they are going through medical school. And because we have so many physicians who advertise in Boomer Times and they're on our radio shows, I've often asked them about their cadaver. And I've told that to Melinda. We laugh about this because I'll say, did you like your cadaver? Was that important? And without, a single change, anybody that doesn't say usually, oh, we loved it. It was so important. And that's why they push this themselves for people to do this.
They absolutely do. Medical professionals support donation mainly because they know about it. They went through the anatomy class where they've had to use cadavers. They also know that new surgical techniques and just the practice of surgeries could not be made possible without donation. So the most important thing about donation is the purpose. It's what it does for each and every one of us. Every one of us is a patient at some time in our lives if we haven't been already. So we work with, not only the medical treatments, it could be medicine, making sure that the proper dosage is provided in order to treat pain or treat the illness, advancements in hip replacements, being able to help alleviate the pain and regain your mobility. I know, with my grandmother, if you broke your hip, a lot of times, that was considered potentially fatal.
Right.
Nowadays, their surgeries are becoming less and less invasive, which is improving their recovery times. You have major surgeries. We had an employee of ours that had a brain surgery and was back to work a few weeks later. I mean, it is just impressive, the advancements that are made. But again, they can't be made possible without donation.
Yeah, that's exactly true. And do people? I know Melinda has told me this, but after this happens and someone dies, and then you take over, do people really send you letters of appreciation? I think she's told me that they do.
Absolutely. We get them all the time. We truly do. We actually have a scrapbook that we've placed everything in because we don't want to lose those important memories for them and also for us. It's important that everyone that works for Science Care knows the impact that we have. I always educate my group to never forget the important work that we do and that we should feel blessed to even have this opportunity. The amount of pride that these families have through donation, it truly, truly changes the grieving process. With donation, it transforms the grieving process. So many families share the differences in their healing from a funeral to going through donation, just that comparison. Donation leaves you with pride and honor. It's a feeling that is, rarely, rarely left from any other services. We get a lot of people that share that with us and just say, Mom, we had a funeral for, and Dad went through donation, and the way I share my dad's passing and how he's impacting the future brings a smile on my face, and I didn't get that with Mom. So again, it really does transform the grieving process and leaves you with something positive. It's really hard to find a positive in someone's passing.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It is a subject that's interesting. What did you do before you joined Science Care?
Prior to joining Science Care, I actually worked for temporary housing to find or relocate families that have lost their home, whether it be a fire, a catastrophe such as a hurricane, or simply a house fire, or water loss, things like that. So I've always connected with companies that have had a strong purpose and impact to someone's life, and that's just very fulfilling for me.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure that is true. So, oh boy, well, it is a different world today, and when I think of something, we think some of these horrific shootings that occur, and you think about that a lot of people don't know about Science Care, and at this point, wouldn't it be better for them not to have to think about all the funeral arrangements and everything that these poor people have to do for their children or whomever, and they could just call Science Care and say, please, just take care of our family for us?
Right. A lot of people don't want, I know my parents, that when they think of their end-of-life arrangement, the first thing that comes to mind is, I don't want to leave this financial burden on you kids. I want to make sure that it's taken care of. And, here through Science Care, again, it's a no-cost cremation option. You are still able to have a memorial service. You can have a burial even. You can bury the remains the same way you would with traditional burial. It's just not, the body. It's the cremated remains. And there's amazing stuff that they do nowadays with cremated remains, with cremation rapidly increasing and, being in some places over 65%, take the option to cremate. So with that increasing, there's just amazing things that you can do to still memorialize, where before, people would think, well, if I have a cremation, then I can't have a service. And that's incorrect. You can have both.
Yeah, that's true. And that's very important that you mention that, because so many times now when you go to a funeral, they have it on the beach. I mean, at least down here in South Florida. I mean, they don't even have it in a chapel. It's not the same anymore. It's a celebration. And someone said to me the other day, listen, don't ever open, if I'm in a casket, I don't want anyone to see me and I'm dead. They say that because, years ago it was traditional, they opened the casket and people all walked around. I don't know why that's important anymore. Do you?
I don't. It's a personal preference. A lot of it comes down to tradition. We are a creature of habit, so a lot of times just traditionally, grandfather, we had this, and now, each family member that passes, we have this same type of service, and religion plays a big factor in it as well. And, we just educate families on the options. I think that's the most important thing for us, and that we ask for the community's support on, is we just want everyone to know what those options are. With end of life, you have burial, cremation, and there's donation. And a lot of people don't know about donation. And we know that more and more, if more and more people knew, they would really rally behind this.
Yep, I think you're absolutely right. It's years ago, I never knew how people got cadavers. I mean, they wasn't it, I don't know how many, 100 years ago, where people stole bodies to use them or something? I had heard that. But
right.
I don't know how they, is that a history of something?
That is a history of something. Absolutely. There are, a lot of interesting things that you'll see run across the news, and a lot of that too actually leaves a bad impression about donation, and people have a lot of fears because of what they may have read in the media. And we always try to reassure everyone that we are the first accredited whole body donor program for non-transplant that's been accredited by the AATB, which is the American Association of Tissue Banks. And through that accreditation, you go through a very strenuous process of audits where they actually come in all the way from, what's happening at our lab to what you mentioned, our headquarters, just here within the service on how the records are maintained, and just full donor traceability, because that's very important in the quality of the work that we do. And we do go through this rigorous process to make sure that we stay above board on everything that we do.
Yep, I think so. I've loved working with Science Care. It was my first really occurrence to do that. I had not known about this whole field as much as this is a profession I'm in as a gerontologist. I didn't really understand it. And thanks to Melinda, who was, of course, my first contact, I learned so much to the point where I said to my husband, it's ridiculous why we wouldn't do it this way. For years and years, I dealt with funeral directors, and I know when my mother, probably 20 years ago, wanted me to go and pick out a casket, and I hated to do it, but I didn't want to upset her, and her sisters did the same thing. It's ridiculous now that I think about it. And there's my mother underground, which she could have helped people for so many years. So, boy, you have me. I am your greatest proponent down here.
We appreciate it. We truly do. You know, we've received a lot of, just in our surveys or that feedback you referenced earlier, and they always ask, why don't you tell people about you? And it's not that we're not keeping the service a secret. It's hard to get the word out, you know. To my biggest kind of initiative in my job is to build awareness. Again, just letting people know what options are available to them for end of life.
Right. No, it is very exciting for us to do this, and I feel privileged to be working with you. And let me just tell you, my guest is Katrina Hernandez, who is a family services manager at Science Care. And I'm going to give you a number. It's a toll-free number to call. It's 1-800-417-3747. Again, it's 1-800-417-3747. And you can call 24 hours a day. And you can go on their website, which is really important, and that's sciencecare.com. Sciencecare.com. And you can actually register there, I believe. Can't you, Katrina, that you can?
Yes, you can. You can register online. You can enroll in our monthly newsletter that will come to your email monthly, as well as look at all the other resources we have there for everyone. If you're looking to write a will but you don't know where to start, we have a service on there. Just a lot of good stuff.
Right, and I know from my mother passing away, I remembered all the things we needed, the death certificates, and it's interesting that you're mourning, and yet you're so preoccupied with all this, and that's why people need to get everything done ahead of time. And you don't need to spend all that money. I think you should take that money that you'd spend on a big funeral and give it to a grandchild for college or something. It just doesn't make sense anymore.
Mm-hmm. That is a great way of looking at it, and a lot of families of ours do, whether they come to Science Care because they, weren't able to afford the expenses, and a funeral home shared the option about Science Care. But I tell you, after they've gone through the process once, they are very much like you, Anita, and say, this is a no-brainer. Why wouldn't we do this?
Right, exactly. So if we're going to now find out exactly what happens with a tissue bank, because we had a speaker, thanks to you all, at our Cure Symposium, and they have a tissue bank at the University of Miami. So do they get to have any of the bodies that you have? How does that work?
The University of Miami, we have been a part of each other's process. The University of Miami Brain Endowment Bank, we do support them as well in their cause and their research. So if families do want to donate their brains for specific research, whether it be Alzheimer's or some other type of illness that is, found through the brain, we can coordinate that. Absolutely, we'll coordinate that, as well as organ donation. So, a lot of people say, oh, I'm a donor, and they show you their driver's license. We always have to educate people on the differences of body donation and organ donation. But the most important thing is you can do both. A lot of times with organ donation, age and if you have cancer can play a big factor on whether or not you actually can be an organ donor. So whether Science Care and body donation is your first option or your second option, it's a great option to have. And again, if you wish to be an organ donor or have, your brain donated in an organization such as the University of Miami can accept that, you can still be a body donor through Science Care. we support all research that is being made, not just in our own organization, but organizations outside of that.
All right, so let's say that they're a member of Science Care and they're traveling. What happens? And they pass away. What happens?
So what happens if you are, far away from home? And unfortunately, we do get quite a bit of people, especially what some call the snowbirds that have a place, let's say in Arizona, and everybody wants to leave Arizona in the summer because that 120 degrees isn't quite comfortable for everybody. So they may, travel to another state. But if you are in a transition and you're in another state and you're a registered donor with us, we will engage a local funeral home to, pick up the decedent and bring them into our care. So that could include a flight actually having to come over by air to one of our nearest facilities, or them having to drive in. But we definitely are still able to assist as long as we are able to engage a local funeral home or some other transportation provider to bring you into our care.
That's excellent. That's good to know. It was funny because I was at an expo a few months ago, and there were some funeral organizations there, and they came up and wanted to know what we were doing, and I said quickly, not knowing, well, this is a different kind of funeral. It's competition. You can't do it. And when I talked to Melinda, she says, no, we need to have these people so when someone passes away that they keep that body there.
We do. We have a lot of support from funeral homes, and other end-of-life providers. But funeral homes are important to us, and they're important to our families because there's services that Science Care can't provide the family. Sometimes the family wants a specific urn, or they still want to have a service.
Right.
Whatever that is, having an option and not having to, incur the additional stress by trying to find a provider.
Yep.
A lot of us don't have a funeral home in our Rolodex. It's
That's
just
true.
not something, someone we always want to engage with.
Well, Katrina.
So we'll provide those resources.
Yeah,
Yes.
and thank you so much. We are just out of time. You've done a great job. I love talking to you. Thank you, Family Services Manager at Science Care. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anita.
All right. Goodbye.